I am doing an off the cuff live video solo today to address the newly instated travel ban by executive order that includes 19 countries total. Um, and at first glance, it looks like, oops, it looks like Venezuela's spared, because they're in a partial ban, but very, very limited exceptions. So it definitely affects me and my family. As some of y'all know who've read my Substacks, I am married to a Venezuelan born man who has become naturalized here in the United States. Um, so he has his American citizenship, he has his US passport, and we still have family. Well, his dad still lives in Venezuela. And even before this ban was not really able to come here. So in order to see him, we had to go to other countries. And I've only met him once. But for his mother and his two sisters, they migrated to Panama City, Panama, and they have their residency there, and that's where they've been living. But when they come to the US to visit us, they come with a Venezuelan passport. So I wanted to wait till I knew for sure what all this ban included. We had a false a false hope this morning when we heard maybe that current tourist visas would be allowed from Venezuela, but that's not true. So it does look like if you have a tourism, business, or student visa, those Venezuelans are no longer allowed into the US as long as this ban is active. So, what does that mean for us? I want to kind of back up and share our story a little bit. I do believe that sharing personal stories and providing a very specific scenario to someone that you know from the internet can help shape your empathy and your potential actions behind that. Um, on the subject of empathy, I think all of us could agree that our country is lacking of it right now. And, I just want to share the story to give a new perspective um, because ours is a story where we followed all the rules. Um, the main argument being, well, don't, come here legally. Well, we did. We we used a lot of resources and made a lot of sacrifices for my husband to come here legally. And so I'll start at the beginning, and I'm making this so I can redistribute this video and hopefully reach more people. And so it's hard in these types of scenarios to give a quick sound bite or a quick Instagram story or reel that's even under 3 minutes. I mean, I have to explain um, all the different layers behind it. So, with that being said, I'll go ahead and share that, my husband and I, we met in New Orleans in 2015. So, we've known each other for a decade now. We met at my favorite restaurant in New Orleans, Baru, on Magazine Street, and he was a waiter at the time. I'll save that story for another day, but uh, pretty much from our first date on, we were dating pretty seriously. And he was in New Orleans because he originally immigrated to Florida, wasn't really for him. He had a cousin in New Orleans, and my husband is a musician, and the only thing he knew about New Orleans was that it was home of jazz and that it was a big music city. So he said, okay, say less. And he was on his way there. And he started working in the kitchen and bussing tables at this restaurant, and eventually worked up to becoming a waiter. The owner of that restaurant's Colombian, and his manager was from Venezuela. So they gave him an opportunity there that maybe wouldn't have otherwise been provided to him because he didn't have any papers just yet. But once he got to New Orleans, he was advised to seek asylum. And my husband's a smart man, and he knew he didn't want to mess around with trying to do it himself. He wanted to find out who the best immigration attorney in town was. And he did. He had an interview with him. He briefly stated his case. And my husband's unique in that he actually really did have a really strong case for an asylum. So he co-founded a resistance organization when he was in college to the Maduro regime and the Chavez regime. So he was pro-democracy, anti-dictatorship, and he was out there protesting and recruiting people. And he had a lot of friends that were detained and had some pretty messed up things happen to them. Started to get more and more dangerous. Um, and within his own family, he had so over there in Venezuela, uh, if you are a supporter of the government, if you were sort of anti-democratic, you were called a Chavista, from Chavez, who was the original dictator, and then he chose Maduro as his successor. And at the time, Maduro was in power when my husband left. But just like here in the US, where in your own family you might have even close relatives that are on the opposite side of you politically, he had that too. So he and his family, he had uncles and cousins that were Chavistas, and one of the uncles one day passed it on to his mom or to him, and they said, Andres is on a list. Um, I'll go ahead and give a recommendation on a movie here. There's a movie called Simon. I'm gonna make sure I'm saying that right. Um, it's on Netflix. And it's a story about a guy who, Simon, who was a protester, and what happened to his friends and the families of those friends. So I suggest you go watch that. It was made in 2023, based on a true story. So he got word, he found out that he was on a list that Maduro had. And, my husband, he always wanted to live in America. He loves and loved his country, Venezuela, but he saw the writing on the wall. Obviously, he was protesting. He did an exchange in high school. So he actually spent 2 years in Montana in high school in the US, and he wanted to stay, but he needed to go back for family issues. But he always pictured himself in America. But once he saw that his name was on a list by the government, and knowing what all that could entail, potentially putting his family in danger. Um, and luckily, he did not have much tying him down, right? He was in his early mid-20s. He didn't have a family. He didn't have a lot of real life responsibilities. But saying that, though, it's really hard to um, imagine someone leaving their country. And it's really easy to say, when to leave, when the writing is exactly on the wall. It's one thing kind of seeing it done in hindsight. It's another to actually live through that. And even as a 20-something-year-old man with no family of his own, he left his family that he had known his whole life. And the day that he left, I mean, I met his dad finally in 2022. He left in 2014. I mean, it'd been almost 10 years since he had seen his dad. and his beloved grandfather passed away in 2017, and he couldn't go back for the funeral. He didn't really get to say goodbye. It's really hard to leave your home and your family, even when you don't have that much responsibility. And I also want to add, um, he had the privilege to not have to. A lot of times, people who are fleeing for a better life or for safety, they're fleeing for like him. It's a young man who does have a family. He did not have to go come here and work. He didn't have to send money home. He didn't have to provide for a young family of his own, and that's important. And I think I wish more people understood the sacrifice, because the only way that my husband could afford the best immigration attorney in New Orleans was because he wasn't sending money back home. He didn't have a family that he needed to provide for, and he could work 16-hour days. And he had the health to do that. And I think it's really important to know that when people say, well, they should have come here legally, follow the rules. Well, the rules aren't always so simple. They're not easy, and you need a lot of resources to come here legally. And luckily, he did have the resources. And like I said, he worked 14, 16-hour days, round the clock. He didn't even have a car. He would bike everywhere in town from one job to the next. And every dollar that he saved went towards this immigration attorney. I think all in all, he spent around 10 grand when all was said and done. And whatever savings was left over, he put a small down payment on a car when he started seeing me, because he knew he couldn't court me and date me without a vehicle in New Orleans. He got an 18% interest rate, put a few thousand down. But anyway, he worked his ass off. And so when you tell someone, come here legally, you need to understand the weight of that and the responsibility behind that and the resources needed for that. So with that being said, we met after him. We were both kind of arrived in New Orleans at the same year. So we were both there for around a year and a half when we met. And sorry, it just feels like someone's sitting on me. I don't know if you've ever felt that kind of stress where, um, so, um, we got married in 2016, and um, he was I think around that time was when he finally got his residency. And once you get residency, you have to be in the US at least 6 months out of the year for 5 years. So we got married. We had our twin girls in 2020, and that was May of 2020, and then October of 2020, he got his citizenship. Or is it September? Um, I remember being devastated because I couldn't go to his hearing because I had infants, and we also had a hurricane that year. He went alone, and I got to FaceTime him. But he was so proud, and he deserved it. And he did it the fair and legal way. And at that point, we were hoping that the biggest challenge was behind us and that we could carry on with our lives, and we did. But it was also that year. It was either 2020 or 2021 that the Trump implemented the what we now know as the Muslim ban. And also, in general, So also that year that we had the twins, his mom we didn't see his family until, October or November of that year because of the shutdown, which was devastating for us because we were hoping to have all of them and their support and for them his mom to be there when the girls arrived, and it was that year that we decided when we couldn't access his mom, um, and it was because Venezuela shut their borders down. Um, it was that year we decided we realized, like, okay, this maybe is a thing now, like, this could happen in the future, and we don't wanna be put in a position where we can't access his mom. We need access to her, and she needs access to her son and her grandchildren. So in 2021 or 2022, I forget when we started the paperwork, but that's when we started applying for his mom to have American residency. Now, she chose you can do it 2 ways. You can apply for residency in the US, and if you do it in the US, you cannot leave the country until your residency is approved. If you do it outside of the US, you can apply for residency outside of the US, but if you do that, you cannot come into the US until your residency is stamped and approved. And because his mom at the time still had a home in Venezuela she needed to sell, she has, like, many brothers and sisters that one of which was depending on her. She was helping to take care of one of her brothers. She wanted to go visit a brother in Spain. And we were thinking, okay, maybe a year, 2 years max was the estimated time we were given. And mind you, the girls were not even 2 yet. It was right before they were 2 when that clock started. Well, it ended up taking she did it outside of the US, so she couldn't come in, and ended up taking almost 3 years. And it's heartbreaking, to even think about it, especially when we really question whether it was worth it or not. It's a lot of money, and she missed the girls' toddler years. We went to Panama once, um, but she missed the bulk of those precious years. She finally got it approved, and as soon as we got word, she came. It was last November that she got here, and she stayed for almost 4 months. And so now we're in a situation where his mom has residency legally, and she has to be in the US at least 6 months out of the year, so, like, 6 months and a day. Now, our unique situation is that my husband, Andreas, was able to apply for her residency through him. Since he was a citizen now, that's why we could apply for her. But when it comes to residencies, you can only apply. So, Andres, he could only apply for a relative that's directly above or directly below him. So, you can't apply for siblings. So, he could apply for his mom, but not his 2 sisters at the same time. His mom now would have to become a citizen and then apply for her 2 daughters. And when he first came over, he had the opportunity when he saw asylum, they ask you, do you have any relatives that you need to bring with you? And he could have, but they were not ready to leave. Again, it goes back to it's hard to leave your home and your family, because if you are seeking asylum, you are saying, I'm in so much danger that I can't go back. Once you seek asylum, you can't just go back and forth from Venezuela if you're saying that you're in danger from there. And so most people didn't come from Venezuela until recent years because unfortunately you have to wait until it gets worse and worse and worse. But eventually they did leave. And of course, in hindsight, you can say, I wish I would have left sooner. Or I wish I would have come over with my son, but that just wasn't the case. It didn't happen that way. So, so we were like, okay, I know this is a long game, but we're going to work on his mom first. So we finally got that done. Major sacrifices were done through that. time we won't get back. And, yesterday proved, in some senses, I'm glad we did it. It was worth the sacrifice because here we are. The ban is in place and we have access to his mom. But here's the kicker to our situation. And by the way, his 2 sisters, let me just say, he's got an elder sister and a middle sister. He's the youngest. Andreina is the eldest, Andrea is the middle, and Andres is the youngest. I know, they all sound the same. Andrea is single. She's a year older than me, and my girls are her girls. Like, she is their second mom, and I'm proud to share that title with her. She loves them like they were her own, and the girls love her as if she was their second mom. She does so much for them. Um, and it's this kind of running joke now because she did not come for their 3rd birthday, and that Christmas, they grilled her. They were like, "Where were you? You missed our birthday." And they were like, "Don't ever do that again, Tia. You cannot miss our birthday." Like, never. And so she was like, "Okay, I'm not, I'm sorry. Like, I will never do that again." And so she's come to every birthday since. Um, she comes on vacations with us. Um, his eldest sister is special needs. Um, his mom takes care of her round the clock. So that's our unique situation. We have this really delicate situation where his mom now has to be here for 6 months minimum, and his eldest sister, Andreina, can only be here for up to 6 months, and you can't get too close to that or the immigration will look down upon that. That was our previous unique situation, and now that, tourist visas are not allowed, Andreina would not be able to come with his mom, and that's a major issue. That's a non-starter. So we haven't even made it a year of her residency, and we knew this could be a possibility, but, um, here we are. So I don't know, that's right, Catherine. The reality of families today is they cross borders, and pretending otherwise is cruel. It is cruel. There's no other way to describe it. It's cruel and bigoted and senseless. Um, so now we don't know what we're gonna do. His mom can't come here for months of it at a time, maybe weeks. She clocked 3 months, from January to March, for 2025, and she was gonna come for a couple weeks at the end of the summer just to make sure she gets over the 6-month hump, and then my 2 sister-in-laws were gonna come for a few months at holidays. But now that they can't come for the holidays, I don't know, we don't know exactly what the path looks like from here. As of today, what it looks like is we'll have to just be going to Panama if we wanna see them now, which is, it's harder, it's traveling with the girls and being away from work. Um, the other option is, the 3 of them will potentially pursue Panamanian citizenship. So again, they'd have to, just like Andreas, like, and we were just talking this morning, it's almost like an insurance. Like, they should probably do that because who knows what other countries may potentially ban Venezuelan passports. So now we have to invest. I mean, I think it's about $5,000 per citizenship. So times 3. But they're going to start that paperwork soon so that they could maybe one day travel here on a Panamanian passport. I don't know. Um, but we were all planning to be together for a few months over the holidays, and we were talking about going to Disney with Andrea, and um, and the underlying thing about this too is I've written about, like, on Substack here, like, what our non-negotiables are as far as, like, staying in the US, because there's always in the back of our minds, there's always that Stephen Miller tweet. He ultimately wants denaturalization, and so I know we're at this point, and denaturalization is way over here, but to me, it still feels like a notch closer. Every time something anti-immigration, anti-Venezuelan. I mean, this is not even talking about, like, some of the other countries they listed, like Haiti and Afghanistan, like, some of these are messed up. I mean, they're nothing but xenophobia, bigotry, and racism, and, using exceptions. This terror attack that happened last week, which was awful and doesn't promote peace in any way or bring us one step closer. And he was from Egypt, so Egypt isn't even on the travel ban now. I think Trump was just waiting for one event of one immigrant to happen to say, "Okay, let's go with the ban." So I don't know particularly what this means for us in the long run, but it's certainly a large red flag for us, as there are many red flags. But this one, again, it feels a step closer to ultimately what we fear the most. Um, but anyway, that's my story. That's how it affects us. It sucks because it's like in the same instance where I feel vindicated, I feel validated for why we fought for his mom to have citizenship. But the same stroke, this situation where she would not be able to leave her eldest daughter for that long in order to maintain that residency is, um, again, it's a unique situation, but I hope it sheds a light to just one of the many facets, one of the many ways that Venezuelan American families are dealing with across the country. Again, we came here, we did it all legally. We did it the right way. We filed the paperwork, we hired the attorneys, we obeyed the laws, and we're still being punished. And not to mention the trauma that this is causing the Venezuelan Americans and the immigrants. My husband feels devastated and lost and unworthy, and he's triggered by having to go through this again and not feeling like he's wanted or um I mean it's just hate, like how do you walk through life feeling like half the people that you encounter in this country don't want you here. It's a very heavy burden. Many people are suffering. I've talked to many people through this Substack that have come to us for wealth guidance through our wealth management firm. I mean, we've already spoken to people, to LGBTQ trans people who have already moved out of the country. People have moved just for fear of the falling of democracy. People who have lost money, people who have lost jobs. Um, and, we haven't been, I can't say we haven't been affected because the mental toll has been very heavy since the inauguration, or since November. And I knew this was coming, but the burden and the fear and the general hatred that you feel through these initiatives and these bans is exacerbated. It does feel, like I said, it feels like I have someone sitting on me. Um, the emotional toll is great. Emotional, financial toll, um, everything. It's people are going through some real things. Hate is real. Um, And again, I would through, like, my past Substacks, if you're feeling in any way, shape, or form in the same way, you are validated. Um, we should all be concerned and worried and in the streets. I know I saw a tweet saying when the Muslim ban happened, people were in the airports protesting, and now it's just now we're on to this tweeting, like, titty tweeting party between Trump and Musk, which just feels like a distraction from the travel ban. It's like, who the fuck cares? Like, people are really suffering. Um, yes, that bill will make people suffer, but at the same time, it just feels like on to the next news clip. Meanwhile, people are really trying to put the pieces together on how to deal with this. So um, we won't be telling our girls, that's for sure. I mean, they're 5 years old. We won't be telling them probably until Christmas when they're going to start asking where their tias and abuelas are. So, but anyway, thank you for giving me a platform to share our story. I hope it sheds light or helps in any way for anyone who watches. And y'all take care. And hopefully y'all tune in again tomorrow when Dustin and I go live for what the hell happened this week. And I know we'll have a lot to break down. Send me your questions. I'm happy to continue the discussion and send me your stories. I know that would help me. Mary says, so glad I caught this live. Thank you for sharing. I'm so sorry for what your family's going through. Thank you. Thank you to everyone that's reached out and has just given some sort of acknowledgement of how shitty this is. So, again, and I feel like, I feel silly for even, um, people have it much worse. And it sucks that we have to compare just who has it shittier, right? But anyway, tomorrow we usually go live around lunchtime, so like 11:30, between 11:30 and noon. And I'll schedule it so you can get a little notification. Keep following. Love and peace to y'all, and I'll see y'all soon. Thank you.